Thank you for coming. It's time for Brecht. We are celebrating, as you probably know, Bertolt Brecht's anniversary this year. It is 70 years since his death. And so Barbara Rogel from Cankarjev teamed with Urban Schrimpf from Goethe-Institut to facilitate a series of lectures curated by our beloved Mladen Dolar from University of Ljubljana. I think at some point there was supposed to be CF Publishing House with us tonight as well, but I see that I don't see any table over there, so I'm not going to point to this too much. As you have noticed, our event is taking place in English, but is simultaneously translated by Anina Oblak and Branka Božić, who you can see over there in that little cabin. Hi, yeah, they're there. So, my name is Gregor Moder. I represent Aufhebung Association and University of Ljubljana as well, and I will mostly serve as the host tonight, as we have a very special guest coming tonight to Ljubljana from, this time from Germany, Oxana Timofeeva. Welcome, Oxana. It is very nice to have you back. I'm very happy that you applauded. It is just so happens that today is Oksana's birthday, and please don't sing. Please don't sing, but it is Oksana's birthday, and as you have seen, the skies have also celebrated this occasion, and have, like, after 4 weeks at least of fog, rain, mud, all the bad, I think it just took Oksana to come to Ljubljana, and now we see the light. Anyway, I want to outline the plan for tonight. I will begin with a brief sketch of what I think is interesting in Brecht's understanding of the strangeness, or die Fremde, and then Oksana will deliver her talk, followed by questions and answers in the end. But let me more properly introduce our guest tonight. Oxana Timofeeva is currently a researcher at the Universität der Künste Berlin. She's a member of the artistic collective Dialectics and the author of many, many interesting works. You may have already read her History of Animals, which is translated into Slovenian as Zgodovina živali and was published by Maska. And some of her shorter essays and texts have been published by the Problemi journal. But she has really much more to offer. She wrote this wonderful book called How to Love a Homeland, or Rodina in the original Russian. I think many of her books that she wrote recently, or let's say in the past decade, have been originally written in English, but Rodina, How to Love a Homeland, was in Russian. But I read it in the German translation. It was something like Gebrauchsanweisung or something like that. Heimat eine Gebrauchsanweisung. The book is really lovely. I absolutely recommend it. It discusses the question of belonging and home that are so profoundly important to everyone, but that at the same time have been hijacked by nationalist and the far-right discourses. She discusses her encounter with the village where she spent her childhood. The village's name is Kazhevnikovo, located somewhere in Siberia, I think. Is it? Because Kazhevnik, there are many villages with that name, but I think this one is in Siberia. I understand that the name of this village may strike us as very similar because it gave the name to Alexander Kazhevnikov, better known as the émigré philosopher Alexandre Kojève, the famous French Hegelian, or French-Russian Hegelian. It is also important to note that that book was written before the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, so it's roughly 4 years ago. The event, I think, which led ultimately to Oksana's becoming emigrant herself, an émigré philosopher herself. And I suspect that, judging by the title of her talk, that she will also address this in her own presentation. But Oksana is quite prolific, and among other books that I can only recommend are Freud's Beastie Boys. All right? You gotta love the title. From 2025, so a very recent book, discussing, of course, Freud's the rat man, the wolf man, and the little horse boy, the little Hans. In 2002, she published a book on solar politics, and forthcoming is her original English book on the soul. It's supposed to come out this year, so we're looking forward to that as well. Again, as I said, she will speak tonight on emigration as the school of dialectics, but I will just want to make like a brief comment on the question of die Vreemde, or tujina in Slovenian, a concept that describes not just the land outside of homeland, but also, and perhaps more importantly, a sense of not fully belonging to the place you live in. If you are in Vreemde, in tujina, you are in a strange land. This implies a loss of something quite essential, a state of being deprived of something that is properly your own, or that should be properly your own. To live in a strange land thus implies an existential kind of deprivation. And this is expressed very clearly in a related German word, das Elend. Elend, of course, means poverty or misery, but its etymology points precisely to something alien. So it's related to the Latin word alienus. In a sense, then, elend implies alienation or estrangement. And this is, I think, the sense in which young Marx described the conditions of the working class as the conditions of alienated labor or estranged labor. The point is that poverty is not just an unfortunate condition for some within the mass production of wealth that we call capitalism. No, capitalism produces poverty because it requires it to maintain itself. What Marx describes with his concept of Entfremdung, or alienation, or estrangement, is thus the condition where the laborer lives in his own house as an alien, or as a stranger. So you don't have to live abroad to feel a stranger anymore, because capitalism brings both the material conditions as well as the existential feeling of die Vreemde to your own home. Your deprivation is not a contingent fact of life, it is your existential and necessary condition. We can say that the miserable and the wretched do not possess anything but their own misery. And if you will allow me to paraphrase Mel Gibson from Braveheart, this famous Australian philosopher, capitalism may deprive us of everything worth living for, but it can never take our own state of deprivation from us. Our misery remains utterly our own. So much for Mel Gibson. But then we come to Bertolt Brecht. In the first scene of Brecht's The Threepenny Opera, Jonathan Jeremiah Peachum, the king of beggars in London, talks to the young misfit called Filch. Peachum introduces Filch to the begging business. Filch has had a hard life. His mother was an alcoholic, his father was a gambler, and since his youth he has been wandering around London like a derelict on the high seas, quote unquote. The very picture of an estranged, miserable man, right? So he's a stranger in his own city. He lives in Elend. He's alienated. Filch agrees with the king of beggars to work for him in one of the districts of London for 50% of his weekly earnings. Peachum's company will also provide him with a suitable begging uniform. So at this point, this is still the first act, by the way, Peachum shows our prospective young beggar his display of 5 basic types of poverty that can still elicit charity from people, which I think is already a classic Brechtian move. There is nothing particularly interesting in poverty. There is nothing special about it. There is no need for any kind of philosophy of poverty. There are simply a few basic types, and you can wear them as a uniform. And so indeed Peachum chooses for Filch equipment or a uniform of type D. Filch has to change clothes on the spot, and his own clothes will then belong to the company. This prompts the following dialogue. Let me read it to you in English translation. So Peachum, he says, "Take off your clothes and put this on. But mind you, look after it. Filch. What about my own things? Peachum. Property of the firm. Outfit E. Young man who has seen better days, or, if you'd rather, never thought it would come to this. Filch. Oh, you use them again. But why can't I do the Better Days Act? So he's wondering, like, why can't I play this young man who got in troubles? Because I'm already wearing this clothes, right? But then the Peachum says, because nobody can make his own suffering sound convincing, my boy. If you have a bellyache and say so, people will simply be disgusted. End of quote. I think this is quite wonderful. The idea that Brecht shows us in this fantastic dialogue is that Filch has to exchange his own authentic misery or suffering for someone else's. Why? Well, because nobody can make their own suffering sound convincing. Or in German, weil einem niemand sein eigenes Elend glaubt. So apart from the reduction of poverty to 5 basic types, Peachum also suggests that it is a question of a convincing act. And this is an extremely interesting point. The misery, elend, or the state of deprivation or alienation, as I suggest we translate it, the misery is not ultimately your own. Our authentic and spontaneous conditio humana, our genuine thrownness into this inhospitable world of capitalism, is at best repulsive. In other words, we must distance ourselves as quickly as possible from our primary form of alienation. And I think that in this wonderful idea, Brecht offers us, I think, the best cure against that existentialist reading of young Marx. Instead of claiming alienation as your own, you should alienate yourself from it. And with this, let me pass the word to Oxana Timofeeva. Please join me in giving her, another warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Gregor, for this wonderful introduction, which really paves the way to what I will deliver now in this short paper. And I would like to begin from thanks. I'm thankful to Cankarjev Dom for this wonderful opportunity to speak here in such a beautiful room, and I'm thankful to Goethe-Institut Ljubljana, which makes Goethe-Institut, which makes so many things possible all over the place. And I am very thankful to Gregor and Mladen for inviting me for this series of events, which sounds fantastic, and for all of you who came tonight. We cannot properly see the room because of the light, but we will see you during the Q&A session when the light setting will change a little bit. So did I forgot to thank somebody? No, I did. Okay, no, so then I can begin. I begin from Brecht. My first engagement with Brecht goes back to 2019 when I was working on this short book, which Gregor already mentioned, which English title sounds like How to Love a Homeland. I will now briefly tell you about this book and why and how it was written, and read a passage from it that most explicitly touches upon Bertolt Brecht, and then connected to the present day, which makes my Brechtian references or Brechtian experience all the more relevant. To tell the truth, this little book, How to Love a Homeland, was written out of pure happiness. In 2016, I made a journey to the place of my childhood, a small town in Kazakhstan called Chu. It was the journey I had dreamed all of my life, and it made me enormously happy. I simply wanted somehow to share this feeling of happiness. In the same year, I made 2 other journeys, one to the small village already mentioned by Gregor, Koževnikova, where I was born, and another one, the city where I grew up as a schoolgirl. This series of travels was, in a sense, a coincidence, a happy chance to rediscover that I do come from somewhere, that I really do have a homeland, and that I love it. And also that my homeland is not one. And importantly, it's not identical with the state. A year later, the publishing project Kaifata invited me to write a short book. I was free to choose any topic. The only requirement was that it had to respond to the question how to. That is, to take the form of a kind of a manual. And then a title came to my mind, How to Love a Homeland. The book consists of 4 chapters. The first 3 are autobiographical, recounting my experiences of returning to places of my homeland. In the 4th, the so-called theoretical chapter, it's not super hyper theoretical, even every school child can easily read it. I describe the love of a homeland as a free love, even as a kind of polyamory. My question was and still is, how can one love a homeland without becoming a Nazi? And here enters Brecht. Brecht, who became my main point of reference in these reflections, especially his essay, 5 Difficulties in Writing the Truth, became my guiding thread. In this essay, writing the truth and loving a homeland is nearly one and the same thing. Today, 10 years after that journey and 5 years after the book was published, my experience of homeland has changed drastically. The war, a political and indeed existential catastrophe, emigration, and a new beginning in Germany, but the most important thing has remained. This text was written, How to Love a Homeland, was written out of happiness. It was my love song. Let me now read a passage from this book, from the 4th chapter. In Russian culture, the idea of teaching how to love one's homeland is perceived as a threat. The first associations that come to mind are violence and torture in prison and colonies and detention facilities and in the army. The closer the war, the more talks there about patriotic education. In such moments, homeland becomes a generic name for an ideological narrative bringing heterogeneous elements together into a single complex of affective tuning of both the territory and the people. It mobilizes the population and calls it to rise as one against a real or imaginary enemy. When a state sends people to death, it calls itself motherland. This quote is accredited to different authors, including Bertolt Brecht, although I actually do not know who said that. In 1916, still in his teenage years, Brecht was asked to write an essay at school, for which the topic was taken from Horace. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and honorable to die for the fatherland. In his essay, Brecht wrote, The claim that dying is supposedly sweet and honorable can only be seen as a form of cheap propaganda for a specific purpose. Parting with one's life is always hard, both in bed and on the battlefield, and even more so for young people in their prime. Only empty-headed chumps can be so vain as to say that it is easy to sleep through these dark gates, and even then, only while they assure that their last hour is still far away. End of quote. For these lines, Brecht got almost expelled from school. If we had not known who Brecht was, we could easily arrive at the wrong conclusion and interpret these statements of the young playwright as an expression of his indifference or a complete lack of patriotism, regardless of our stance on it. However, Brecht was a highly engaged author, a communist and an anti-fascist. It is not that his non-acceptance of the patriotic officialdom and militarist ideology, which at that time was gaining momentum in Germany, is based on the belief that homeland is merely a myth invented by propagandists in need of cannon fodder. Simply, a homeland is not the same as a state or even a territory upon which the official representatives of the state, or in Brecht's terms, oppressors, laid their hands. Homeland is neither a state nor a Führer. The regime unfairly appropriates its name, identifies itself with the homeland, turning the land into land owing and people into a population. The machine of oppression and violence engages in high-flow false rhetoric meant to turn people into Nazis. To love a homeland in spite of this ideological machine means to take the risk and call things by their proper names, to peel off the rhetoric from the subject itself. In 1933, addressing his fellow German anti-fascists from exile, Brecht wrote a pamphlet called 5 Difficulties in Writing the Truth. The pamphlet was a guide for those who made a decision to tell the truth in a world ruled by lies. Today, I quote, "Today, anyone who wants to fight lies and ignorance and to write the truth has to overcome at least 5 difficulties. He must have the courage to write the truth, even though it is suppressed everywhere, the cleverness to recognize it, even though it is disguised everywhere, the skill to make it fit for use as a weapon, the judgment to select those in whose hands it will become effective, the cunning to spread it amongst them. These difficulties are great for those who write under fascism, but they also exist for those who were driven out or have fled, indeed, even for those who write in the lands of bourgeois freedom." End of Brechtian quote. Brecht especially stressed the importance of the 5th element, which is the cunning. One has to write in such a way that truth reads between the lines. Ziffel and Kalle, 2 characters from his play Conversation in Exile, discuss the notions of homeland and patriotism. Over a cup of coffee, they exchange extremely skeptical remarks. One of them confesses that it has always seemed strange to him to have to love the country where one pays taxes. The other suggests it can be explained by the lack of choice. It is as if you loved the woman you married rather than marrying the woman you loved. Me, I'd like to have a choice. Let's say I'm showing a bit of France, a yard of England, 2 Swiss mountains and a Norwegian fjord. I'd point and say, I'll take that as a country, and I love it. But the way things are now, loving your country is like loving the window you are being thrown out of. This is, of course, quite a cunning play. Russians say one does not choose a homeland and then throw themselves out of the window. How many waves of migration from Russia have there been? 1, 2, 3. It is now the fourth one that has taken place. People leave for another country to obtain a new passport and to start a new life. At the new place, first they unpack their suitcases and then their herds. And within their herds, they find their homeland that does not look anything like an imposed, top-down and officially documented unity of the government and the people from which they fled. Brecht was born in the German city of Augsburg, and spent 15 years between 1933 and 1948 outside his home country. He called Emigration the higher school of dialectics and wrote the following about his homeland. I, Bertolt Brecht, come from the Black Forests. My mother carried me into the cities while I lay in her body, and the coldness of the forests will stay in me until I die. Entering a relationship of mutual negation with the homeland, emigration recreates it through itself in the new place, re-establishing its locus, such as the dialectics of exile. Homeland does not exist without its people, but it can move freely with them around the world. The coldness of our forest, the breath of our steppes is always with us. This is the end of the passage of of my book that I was reading, and now I give a more recent. Now I pass to a recent writing. So, How to Love a Homeland was published in 2020. I was writing about Brecht, his response to fascism, his relation to his homeland and his exile, without yet knowing that 2 years later I myself would wake up inside what must be called a fascist state. In 2022, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, most of my friends and comrades fled Russia. Many become wanderers, migrants, refugees, legal or illegal, learning to begin anew without ground beneath their feet. At this point, my small book acquired an unexpected function. It began to circulate as a pocket read for deserters, immigrants, and asylum seekers while they were on the move, a modest companion in the practice of displacement. Messengers and readers' feedbacks began to reach me from different parts of the world, from hostels, checkpoints, airports, and railway stations. When I myself once stood at a border control, I received a message from a former student of mine from St. Petersburg who had just fled forced military mobilization. He wrote that he was in Kazakhstan reading my book, and that at that very moment his train was passing my hometown, Chu, described in that book, the place where I had once been so happy. This strange crossing, unbelievable, strange crossing of trajectories immediately reminded me of Brechtian sentence about exile as a school of dialectics. I realized that now I had to study, but also, like both of us or all of us had to study, but also to teach in this school. I quote Brecht again from the refugee conversations. Refugees are the sharpest dialecticians. they've become refugees as a result of changes, and they spend all their time studying changes. They see the smallest signals as harbingers of the most significant events, if they've got any sense, that is. When their opponents are victorious, they calculate the cost of the victory, and they have a keen eye for contradictions. Long live dialectics. End of quote. Long live dialectics. This quote is taken from Brecht's Refugee Conversation, a play written by Brecht in exile in Finland in the first couple of years of the Second World War. The characters of this dialogue, Ziffer and Kalle, two refugees from Nazi Germany, meet in a cafe at Helsinki railway station. Somehow this place brought these two strangers together. They come here again and again and talk about various topics. War, migration, fascism, countries where they used to stay. And they traveled, they all traveled the Brechtian ways. Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and so on. So mostly Western, northern countries. Helsinki used to be my exile meeting point too. In March 2022, I left from St. Petersburg with one of the last trains to Helsinki. Later, this train connection stopped forever. I didn't know whether there will be a possibility to return. It was too difficult to leave from the city that I loved so much, so I decided to travel without a luggage, with nothing. This way I could keep the feeling that the feeling of home waiting for me with all my belongings, dresses, books, and rugs. Strangely, the experiment worked. I retained the possibility to return, and I even exercise it sometimes. For a time, the land border between St. Petersburg and Helsinki remained a corridor of oscillation until it too closed in 2023. With each crossing, repetition produced recognition. At Helsinki airport, in a small Lebanese cafe, I regularly met a former schoolmate who had immigrated to Finland. And what did we speak about? War, migration, fascism, countries where we used to stay. Same topics as our fellow German immigrants almost 100 years ago. To be precise, our German fellow comrades from Brechtian exile were not immigrants in a proper sense. In his poem concerning the label immigrant from 1937, he writes that they did not leave voluntarily. They were expelled, driven out, banned. Not a new home, but exile received them. Fremde, this kind of чужбина, as we say in Russian language. They waited near the frontier, observing, remembering, not forgiving anything. And then comes this is the beautiful poem. Comes the striking image. Yes, we ourselves are almost like rumors of crimes which escaped over the frontier. Every one of us who with torn shoes walks through the crowd bears witness to the shame which now defiles our land. I think I should read it also in German. Sind wir doch selber fast wie Gerüchte von Untaten, die da entkamen, über die Grenzen. Jeder von uns, der mit zerrissenen Schuhen durch die Menge geht, zeugt von der Schande, die jetzt unser Land befleckt. How is it to be the rumors what would it mean? We are the rumors of the crimes that are going on there over the border. Losing language, voice, identity, citizenship, home, profession, name, and other privileges. This is one lesson that we learn in the school of dialectics. Language, voice, identity, citizenship, home, profession, name. These are privileges that can be withdrawn from you at any moment. Declared traitors, criminals, or foreign agents in one country, marked by suspicion or cancelled in another, one becomes a rumor, a moving trace, like a sign with no bearer or something, with no subject. Another lesson is the following. No cancellation can harm the one who has already cancelled himself, who has accepted becoming nobody. One has thus already performed the negation of negation. So again, no cancellation can harm the one who has already cancelled himself or herself. Not a rumor, but a legend already. A story of Lao Tzu, told by Brecht in his poem The Legend of the Origin of the Book Tao Te Ching on Lao Tzu's Road into Exile, 1938. The 70-year-old philosopher Lao Tzu leaves his country, riding into exile on a water buffalo, withdrawing from a corrupt and declining political order. At the border, a customs guard stops him and asks whether he has anything to declare. Lao Tzu has nothing. Then the guard asks him what is his philosophy. Lao Tzu replies, "Water wears down the stone." The officer demands an explanation. How can the soft overcome the hard? Lao Tzu stays in the officer's house for 7 days and writes his philosophy down. The result becomes a book, Tao Te Ching. He leaves the book with the customs officers and then continues his journey, carrying nothing, traveling light. The guard, the ordinary and attentive figure, becomes the medium of philosophy. And now we have this book, one of the greatest school books in our School of Dialectics, whose third lesson is that leaving everything behind is not only deprivation, but also a mode of knowledge. Exile produces a hidden international, a sort of a hidden secret international, a network that exists not only in space but also in time. Its teachers and students speak across centuries and learn to read happiness through loss, method through displacement, thought through the movement of contradiction, and generally speaking, theory through lived experience. Thank you very much.
Oksana, thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. There were very many interesting, beautiful thoughts that you put out to us. We're entering the Q&A session, so if you do have a question, think about it, phrase it carefully. We want to be heard and everything. But I will start with a few questions of my own. So you began your talk quite beautifully. You said something like that you were writing the Rodina, the How to Love a Homeland book, and that you were somehow surprised when you realized that you do come from somewhere, right? When you visited the places of your youth. And I think this opens up this whole question of homeland being something that is not like native to us in this sort of naturalistic sense, but that it is mediated already, that it is something basically produced socially, psychologically, whatever you want to call it. Would you basically agree with that? I mean, I suppose it's no big wisdom to say that if you want to use the sense of home and belonging for some political use, like the Nazis do, that you mentioned quite a lot in your talk, clearly you are producing something that didn't exist there before. But you are suggesting, I think, also that we can, we can accept that idea that homeland is something produced, and then maybe produce something nice. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Yes, but the question was, I agree or disagree, or I can expand.
Please do expand. I was just throwing some bones.
Yes, of course, I agree, and I would add that there is it's a very contradictory concept and thing and phenomena, whatever you call it. I remember one day how actually this question raised in my head about homeland and whether it is possible to love it at all. Many of us are coming from leftist culture, where patriotic feelings are rather considered as something reactionary. Nationalism. I'm an internationalist. I'm for. I don't like all this nationalism stuff, and I do not think it's cool to be proud of a place where you stay just because of this element of symbolic belonging to a place. I do not think that the roots are those that connect you to a place where you was born, and in this place you are supposed to die, and preferably to die for this place in a military conflict, defending this place, for example, or something like this. This is all connected somehow. There is a whole complex of associations that are rather negative, especially with regards to our Brechtian thematics of the critique of the far right ideology, so to say. But we were having a party with some friends in St. Petersburg, in Tavritsky Garden, a very beautiful place, and somebody asked, well, but we kind of love this place, St. Petersburg. I mean, if you live in a city like Ljubljana or St. Petersburg or New York, there are great places. Why wouldn't you love these places? Because they are just fantastic. There are fantastic people. There are fantastic buildings. There are fantastic landscapes. Everything is great. Why not to love it? Because somebody else loves it, and their love is so jealous and so greedy that they pretend that this place is theirs, because they come there with their army and police and occupied the place where we lived. So before invading Ukraine, Russian troops, so to say, not troops, but the police, the military police, already invaded Russia itself and occupied it. We had so many policemen already back in a few years before the beginning of the war. So many policemen on the streets. There was a feeling that this city is occupied by someone who does not really belong, but who pretends to possess this place. So it's not a relation of belonging, or of a certain affinity with this land, but a possession and a demonstration of a symbolic power and pretension over it. So I thought, why not to reappropriate this concept from fascisms? From fascists. It's a good concept. It's a good thing. homeland, it gives you, it can give you a totally new meaning of solidarity, whatever. It can give you a lot of good things, as you say. Yeah.
Let me ask you a more Brecht related, like directly Brecht related question. When the war broke out, I think in his own time, he wrote Mutter Courage. You know, he deliberately, he was obviously impacted by the war theme. He didn't like that his country, that probably he would have liked to call homeland, if I follow your thoughts, you know, started that massive war. But he deliberately chose a different war. He didn't speak about that war specifically, but about an older war. And what do you think about that? So I suppose part of the question is how do you see his deliberately taking the distance from the event that clearly shaped his own understanding of the world and homeland and whatever?
I think that's what I would try to do as well if I were at his place, on his place. This is what you call.
I suppose this was like kind of like my second part of the question. I didn't
estrangement.
The estrangement, yeah. But I was wondering, are you familiar with contemporary Russian oppositional production and what kind of theater they use? Like I know this comes a bit out of blue, and you haven't lived in St. Petersburg for a while, but still, maybe you know something.
Within Russia, there is
outside,
unfortunately now oppositional production is not possible because the theater is very much under the control of the state, so the first thing they did, and they still do, they replace all theater directors. And they got rid
that's
of
very
all
important, actually.
Of all independent directors and theater initiatives. I know one. I have a friend of mine who was how to say alternative director, and and he used to stage Brecht on the streets of Moscow, even in the beginning of the war. But then he got arrested, and he spent in prison. He spent some time in prison, and not very long. But then he was basically expelled from Russia. Now he's in Berlin. But I know what you mean. So I understand the question. I think about. Mother Courage, I think that taking another war is a sort of a dialectical work of this connecting via estrangement to the other experiences. It is a little bit like with this 𝐿𝑎𝑏𝑒 story. When Brecht himself in exile writes about 𝐿𝑎𝑏𝑒, who is escaping, who is fleeing China, or maybe it was India. So it's not clear actually the story of 𝐿𝑎𝑏𝑒. Maybe he was which part of the border did he cross this way? So it's just a legend, a rumor actually, and then he writes this entire book just for the officer. Just to feed his curiosity, on this person's curiosity, and 𝐿𝑎𝑏𝑒, it's not a random figure. It's like a part of this migrant international, so to say. It's a Brechtian alter ego here. So he finds a comrade in a totally different tradition, but in a sort of similar situation. So the repetition, but it's not the same. It's a totally different, but it's still kind of a a coincidence. There are in the pores of time, the time as a we can think of time and space as porous, as perforated with multiple holes, and in these rabbit holes we meet our comrade predecessors, the people who struggled before, like centuries or like somewhere else, or at some other historical period. And these people, they can actually they can give us some how to say, we can rely on them. They can be our guides through this experience, which we would probably not be able to make ourselves. When I was well, if I can talk about my own stories, I always do that. I was writing my book on the soul. 2 years of war, I was always asked by different people, journalists, you know, to talk about Ukraine, Russia, and police repression, whatsoever. But I was writing a huge chapter on Plato, and I was sort of fine with that, because I found a point of reference, and my personal negative experience, the negativity of nowadays, opened my eye towards something special. For example, that Socrates was a political prisoner. He was condemned by the state for 𝐶𝑒𝑏𝑒𝑟𝑛𝑡, which is now in Russia is called disrespect for religious feelings. Same thing. People are coming. He's saying to his pupil, "Stay cool. The soul is immortal," and that's true. That's what I understood. And also Brecht. That was my reference. So this whole all 4 years of this war, I was thinking about his experience, about his exile. I was reading his poems that he wrote in Finland about Germany and the Germans there. How do they feel? How they are treated, and how they handle it? How they keep going, so to say. This is what I call this international. So you see the others, they have war. You know, Yugoslavian war. It was so important for us when we Russians get into a trouble. Just recently, 4 years ago, we all spread around the globe, and those who went to the Balkans, they were said, hi, you know, guys, we went through that. We have this experience. Please don't follow this this path, and so on. This is very important.
Thank you very much, Oksana. This was wonderful. I have one more question for you. If there's a question in the audience already formed, please raise your hand. But I have one more question for you. You mentioned also the indignation over things not being called by their proper name. I think as someone who only knows things through television, I'm that kind of stupid person. But I assume that at least in part this also refers to how the war in Ukraine was referred to. I'm not sure if it's still referred to in Russia as a special military operation that is now lasting 4 years, which is how much Yugoslavia's war. For Yugoslavia, the Second World War lasted for 4 years. It was like, 4 years to me at least sound like oh my God, this is hell. So, and I think this is the topic of your book that I didn't mention in the presentation. which was already long. This is not that. Is that correct? Do you talk about this in your book? Now, my question is, how do you think politicians like Trump come into this play? Because I think that, if you compare what Russia, is using or Putin is using when he's talking about special operation and not war, I think we can easily find examples of American presidents talking about defending themselves in advance. I forgot the exact phrase, but there was a war. They invaded Iraq, and I think their pretense was it's a defense actually, but it's somehow like retroactive defense. It was a very stupid thing. It was definitely this is not that. It was clearly an invasion. However, I think that with Trump, this somehow changes. I think Trump isn't a case of simply not calling things by their own name. I mean, Trump is many things. How do you think? How do you think he complicates this notion of this is not that?
Well, to be dialecticians, and we must say that everything changes with Trump. Nothing changes with Trump. Well, I will talk about something else. Thinking about language. I have one more book which is called Freud's Beastie Boys, where I'm trying to, through these different cases with boys having troubles with animals, having some issues, somebody is afraid of an animal. So through this analysis, I'm trying to anthropologically to reveal a sort of anthropological, religious and political, social knot and psychic of patriarchal society, which is like millennia long, and it turns out that we still live in this primordial horde. No one didn't even leave this stage. I mean, it returns, and that's how I see contemporary right-wing politicians, including those who are female. Doesn't matter which actually the gender they are, but the structural function is this patriarchal horde, the alpha male on the top, and everything is allowed to this alpha male. Also, this pretending telling the truth, Brecht meant when he said telling the truth, he meant something else, something totally different. Definitely not what Trump is doing. Trump is. Okay, now I understand how to answer. So Trump's reference already before he was elected as a president, he referred to a common sense. He said we need to return to common sense. Those extreme leftists, communists, look at them, transsexual, whatever, they are migrants, they are crazy. They are insane. This is insanity. We have to go back to normality. And let's then call things by their names. There are two genders, okay? Or no, not genders even, there are two sexes or something like this. And other things pretending to be this common sense or like healthy sense. This is common sense is not truth. It's rather an ideology. It's rather in something like in this example from this Brechtian play. With the changing dresses, the option D changing for the option E, the guy who, yeah. So there is a slight shift in this so to say truth. You tell the truth, but it's not there. Well, Putin is also saying the truth. It's like he's saying, look at the West. There is a colonialism there, or something. Human rights are not respected. Things happen. The truth itself is like homeland, you know. Truth itself must be reappropriated from the enemy. There is probably another approach to this problem.
All right, thank you very much, Oksana. I do have more questions, of course, I always do, but I want this to be a more, what's the popular word, interactive. So if there's a question, yes, we have a hand. So Max, can you help us with the microphone?
Your questions are so wonderful. It's so interesting to reply them.
Yeah, and I like the way you reply them. You start by saying something completely unrelated, but then, aha, now I know. I love that. All right, go ahead.
Should I stand up, or is it fine while sitting?
Do it the way you feel most alienated to.
I prefer to sit, so if that's fine.
So maybe then you should stand up, right?
Okay. Okay, now I'm on the spotlight, but yeah, so first of all, Oksana, thanks a lot for the lecture. I really enjoyed it. My name is Alexandra, and I want to first of all apologize for my question, which might sound stupid, because I'm not a philosopher myself.
Those are best questions. Go ahead.
So it will be maybe not so much to you as a philosopher, but more to you as a human. And I'm your compatriot. I myself also come from Russia and also from St. Petersburg. And so to many things that you have named during your lecture, I can relate. But honestly speaking, I've been struggling a lot with my feelings towards my homeland for many years, particularly since the war has started. I don't live in Russia for many years. I have immigrated even before the war has started because, as you said, I started feeling like our homeland already before started being taken from us and occupied by some foreign forces. And partially, I guess, maybe it's connected to the fact that I had some kind of high expectations towards my homeland. And now I'm feeling deceived. And I'm feeling deeply offended by everything that my homeland has done and has been doing to other people, including the citizens of my homeland. And I'm not sure how to forgive, and if I will ever be able to forgive. But that was just an introduction. So now coming to the question part. At the end of your lecture, you have mentioned this story about the philosopher who was crossing the border, and then the policeman stopped him. And he said his philosophy was that the water wears down the stone. And my question would be, do you personally believe that the water wears down the stone in the sense of us and our small voices as a soft power, I don't know, everywhere around the social media, wearing down the monster of fascism and authoritarian regimes, and how long it might take for us to wear down the stone completely? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, wonderful question. First, I briefly comment on a homeland. So, when we were at school, maybe if you still were in the Soviet school or the Russian school. Okay. So I was in the Soviet school, and they taught us that there are two types of homeland. Like there are two types of everything: the big one and the small one.
That was the same in Yugoslavia, by the way. Just to let you know, we had like this Ožja domovina, which was Slovenia and the Socialist Republic of Slovenia, and then we had the Širša domovina, which was Yugoslavia.
So in my concept, maybe I was too little, but in my concept, a small homeland, small domovina was
Ožja.
Ožja was a place where it's actually a certain material place to which you are attached, and it's like a town where you live, maybe a village, maybe a settlement, or maybe sort of a little bit bigger, but something more immediate that you can relate: a landscape, people, and so on. And a bigger domovina is a country or a state, the Soviet Union. Then Soviet Union stopped to exist, and I realized that I do not have that big homeland anymore. Moreover, we fled to Russia from Kazakhstan, and Russia was always for me a fremde. I didn't, because my childhood was spent in Kazakhstan, and I considered it as a homeland, something in between big and small. And then reflection about Brechtian notions of truth and patriotism made me think that a big homeland, so to say, so-called, can relate to rather symbolic values of a state, state, regime, whatever. And this, so it's symbolic, whereas this small little homeland is material. That's why I am kind of trying to withdraw to rely on the concept of this small, tiny homelands, the concrete homelands, as opposed to the state that puts his hand on all our territories. It doesn't see actually from the eye of a state, this geopolitical vision is blind towards nature, towards people, towards other creatures that live there. So my question to it, not as a human, you said it's a question to me as a human, but as a maybe not human, and I'm an animal dwelling there. I was dwelling there at my place, and it was taken from me. So I go somewhere else, like that fox in Berlin. You know, they lived in the forest. Now they have to go around this places with garbage to search for food, and that's me in Berlin, like this fox, you know, foxes, and I'm also looking for some garbage there in the container, where maybe somebody left some, well, not exactly, but still. Oh my God! But then there was the
stone.
Yes, okay. Yes, I do think that water overcomes the stone, and moreover, only water can do that, not other stone. So to the empire, the military machine cannot be confronted and overthrown by another military machine, because they are the same. And there must be different levels, different realities. So water is a different reality than a stone. It is, so to say, there is an ontological a disparity between them. And you asked how much time would it take? I would say all the time, and the universe is infinite, so all the infinity. our individual life spin in these regards doesn't really matter. The question is not when we reach a certain point, who we, but the question is, are you a water or a stone? If you are a water, you will find your way.
Okay. Thank you, Oksana. This reminded me. Oh, there's a. Okay, yeah. I also felt like applauding because it reminded me of a Bruce Lee saying, but that's me, my stupid, idiotic Bruce Lee. Yeah, be like the water. So yeah, there is another question. Max, can you help us with the mic?
Could you give us 3 easy steps how to practice philosophy daily in Tuina, in a foreign land? And also, which philosophy school would you advise as top 1 to do that? Except for Stoic, because they are obvious. Thank you.
Excuse me, can you repeat? I didn't hear everything. Philosophy, how to practice philosophy?
How to practice philosophy on a daily basis in foreign land, and which philosophy school is the best to do that?
That sounds like a provocative question, like a gotcha question. But let's see. Thank you.
I personally think that practicing philosophy is good in every situation, in every country. Also in every language. If you don't know the language, you learn it, you read it somehow from everywhere. You read what other people are, where they were sharing their ideas, so to say. But with regards to school, this is, I don't know, I have my favorites. I always work with the classical Western tradition, but that's what I learned in school. This is, so I have a certain books to which I refer from always, for many years. I do not read too many books. I do not read everything. I've read a couple of things. I've read Kafka. That's one of the main. I've read Hegel. I've read Georges Bataille. Oh, this is a must read, of course. Yes, it really helps. Oh, I forgot one thing, replying to a previous question. But I I also read Nietzsche, and now I also read Plato. It's wonderful. I really, it's a discovery. When I was young and when I was a student, I was also, I wanted everything fancy, you know, contemporary, and especially French. French was then back then in fashion. But now I read all stuff. I enjoy things that really were proven by centuries, by many centuries, and so on.
The classics, yes. Yeah. That's
yes.
I personally have also passion for the classics, so I'm totally happy with that answer.
May I, Gregor, briefly also return to the water and stone?
Yes, of course. Everything else was a distraction.
No. That was also challenging. So a little another example. In you know this movie from the 70s, 72, I guess, Cabaret. It is, the action takes place in Berlin, the beginning of fascism. Cabaret, Kit Kat, and I guess, and there is a group of people there. They are kind of queer, polyamoric, freaky people.
They live in Berlin, yeah.
Yeah, they live in Berlin, and they are like bohemian people. And there is this huge, like, wave of fascism, which is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and harder and harder and harder. And they are getting sort of softer and softer and softer. And they are also sort of international, because a Jew, an American is there. They are also kind of like all they do not fit the entire the German official facade that is getting force. And I was watching this film recently, and I realized that, oh well, this is only this is the only way sometimes to be a little bit. They live a wrong life from the point of view of this terrifying normality of the order that belongs to the so-called regime. Yeah, very soft, something not serious, something childish, something crazy. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Max, we have a question over there.
Well,
thank you. Actually, your talk and the title of your talk reminds me of one of the really great ironic short poem by Brecht, The Solution, that is a response to the 1953 uprising in East Germany that was suppressed by the Soviet forces. The poem ends with these really nice lines, if I remember correctly. It says, would it not be easier in that case for the government to dissolve the people and elect another? I mean, it's a par excellence dialectician Brecht here. I mean, do you think that in our, let's say, contemporary world, I mean, these anti-immigrants, to make a link to your topic, these anti-immigrants policies, for example, in the case of what is going on in the Mexican border via this Trump's administration, do you think that in these so-called democratic, countries, is this dialectical, turn in democratic political order in which, instead of people electing the government, it is government which is electing the people, via this anti-immigrant, you are allowed to get in, you are not allowed. Just wanted to know if you have something to say about this turn into democratic, political order. Yeah.
Yes, it's a great line. Oh, you wanted to say something? Oh.
Just thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I also recently read this line, and I thought about that. I think that it's hard to me to talk about democratic countries because I do not have much experience of living in a democratic country. Maybe, depends with what you compare. Actually, Germany today is a democratic country. This is, to be honest, soon we have elections in a small town where I live. There are 5 candidates. They are representatives from different parties, and nobody knows in advance who will be elected. So, such a fun. This is democracy. Really, we don't have this experience, and I never had this experience. I'm so. When there were parliamentary elections in Germany, also people didn't know in advance which party will get into the parliament, and those parties' representatives influence the state politics, so that actually still, this is not Russia or Russia is something different. But talking about electing the people, so now elections, why in Russia, I guess, yes, the government does elect the people or select the people because a lot of people are then expelled. So some people feel like, okay, we flee, we escape, and then there will be a luck in the country, but it's not. Okay, we like a lot of people immigrated, but then new people are born, and new people are already educated in a new way. So, by severing repression and introducing censorship, and also by producing means of like making so that people cannot work in their profession anymore. That's the way to expel. Another way to expel. For example, somebody, a scholar with an international profile and background, cannot teach in Russian university, and then they are forced to somehow disappear. So a new people come, elected by indirectly elected by the government. But then, okay, coming to a democratic countries, observing the processes that are taking place in America, first of all, and in Western Europe, we see that this tendency opened, this possibility opened by Russian, so to say, ruling class, is picked up by other more democratic, so to say, entities, and then a similar process occur: repressions, censorship, official and non-official, in the universities, in cultural institutions, in Europe, and in the US, of course. First of all, they take the same way. They take the same way. Begin to working on this possibility to elect the people. So Brecht gave a good idea to the governments. They probably read this line and, yes, right, why should we be elected? Let's elect those and select those. Not election, but rather selection. Let's select the people who would fit our expectations. Stupid enough, servile, and so on.
Thank you, Oksana. So just a few things before we finish up for tonight. We have about an hour and a half, so we're closing time. If there's a question that still needs to be asked, now is the time to speak. If not, let me just remind you that the Brecht celebration in Cankarjev Dome will continue next month. Please make sure that you come here on March 13th. It will also be a Friday. It will be a very special evening, as we will hear from Jakub Ribic, a Ljubljana-based Brecht expert who chose a very exciting title for his talk, Change the World, It Needs It. I had the opportunity to read the early version of Jakub Ribic's book on Brecht, and I can say that it is a truly impressive work. So mark this name, Jakub Ribic, as you will hear a lot about it in the future. Before we do the final thank you to Oksana, I also wanted to thank everyone who helped make this evening possible. So specifically Cankarjev Dome and Goethe-Institut, our translators, Anina Oblak, and Branka Božić, and of course Mladen Dolar, who curates these events. And finally, of course, oh wait, no, it's not the time yet for a big thank you to our wonderful guest. I have something for you. This was prepared by Cankarjev Dome for you because it's your birthday. So
Are they chocolates?
I think so. Yes, there's chocolates. Thank you, Oxana Timofeeva. You have been a wonderful guest. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, and good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.